Welcome back to another live session on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by co-host Anthony Migliorino. Anthony, what's up, brother?
Nothing much, man. What's going on, Zach?
We're going back at it, man. You know how it goes. Our Wednesday nights, every night, we're sitting here, we're talking fatherhood, and today we have another special guest, repeat guest, many years together, many events, many memories with this man. That is the one, the only, JimeeGee. What's up, brother? Welcome back onto the Oak and Rock Fatherhood podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's nice to be on this side of the podcast versus just lurking in the chat and
it's always appreciated. I'm going to miss sharing your comments up on the screen. But with that said, if you have any questions or anything, throw it into the chat. Jimmy will jump on them. Anthony and I will address the best we can. The reason I said it in that order, I said Jimmy will jump on it. We will assist the best we can. Anthony and I have worked extensively with men who've gone through divorce, men who are currently in shared custody situations, but we don't live it. And we do put a high emphasis and value on experience over theory and understanding. Now, our experience comes from working, so it's like secondhand. You know, you can learn a language through secondhand experience, just picking up what other people are saying. But if you're born into it and you've experienced it, and that's kind of where you grew, you'll know it better no matter what. Jimmy, unfortunately, you have been in the situation to where the marriage didn't work out, things split up, and so now you're divorced with a shared custody situation. And it is what it is. You know, we've come to peace with it. We've done a lot of work together, but you can answer the question of what men are going through far better than Anthony and I can. And so that insight is exactly what we want in the show tonight, because that's what we're talking about. Dealing with a divorce, shared custody, and still being the best damn dad you can be.
Yeah. No pressure. I appreciate it.
It's all on you. We can't
pressure,
do it.
Dude.
Yeah. Appreciate
so
with that, bar high.
With that, let's just dive right into it. I don't want to go too deep into the relationship itself, but I would love to hear when things started to click for you after you realized, like, all right, this is over. The vision that you had for how things would play out is no more, and you're rebuilding yourself up as a man, and specifically a father. How did you go down the process of saying, all right, I've got this, I can make this work, we're going to be okay?
That's a good question. I think there, certainly, right, divorce is destructive. It doesn't matter the situation or how amicable things are or how well people get along. It's always destructive. So in the initial aftermath, and that might have been a year or so, like the biggest challenge was dealing with helping the girls deal with their emotions around divorce while dealing with my own simultaneously. So once you get past that and sort of that initial, like you said, shock of the whole thing, then throughout that process, but I was thinking of how can I be the best dad that I could be in divorce, but you're dealing with all these things all at the same time. So there's probably a year or so, or however long it really was, maybe longer than the year and a half, 2 years, that I had to just the emotional side of it and all the things in the initial aftermath. It's like getting through it, and then you get to a point where, okay, what can I do with the time that I have? And, some of this was conversations that I've had with you guys. Some of it was things that I stumbled across on my own or, thought of myself is, how can I be, like I said, the best dad that I could be in divorce? And the one thing that probably helped solidify my thinking about parenting in divorce was the idea of taking the girl's perspective. Imagine what they must feel like. They were young, they were 4 and 6 at the time. And imagine how powerless they feel. Sure, they're upset and they don't know what's going on and they're confused and all those sorts of things, but there's nothing they can do to change the outcome. There's nothing they can do to change the situation. There's nothing that they can say, no matter how much they tried to come up with ways to, here's all the ways that you and mom are similar, or these are the things that you have in common. So, but the reality is they have no choice. So then my focus became on how can I give them a sense of choice, or what we've talked about as power. How can I give them that choice in a situation where they have zero choice? And so that sort of changed my thinking about parenting. Because then it's like, in the moment, how can I give them uh, ways to choose things? Not, you know, that doesn't mean they're running roughshod over me kind of thing, but it's hey, we need to practice violin, uh, and they want to play with the neighbor kids. It's like, you can practice now or you can practice later. It's up to you. Oh, well, we'll do it later, or whatever the case is. But it's teaching them negotiation over time that really helped. But it was that idea of giving them choice that really helped uh, solidify my thinking on parenting and divorce.
You know, what's interesting about that is a lot of people, and I don't know if you saw in the chat, Jimmy, but if you want to check the private chat, your audio is getting a little weird on us. So I'm going to buy you some time, and I'm just going to rip through with some insights that I've seen and some things that I kind of want to throw your way. Now, you wrote a great piece on baseball about reading the stitches, and it hands down my favorite thing written by you of all time. But you talk about, sometimes you got to choke up, sometimes you got to hang back, sometimes you got to swing for the fences, sometimes you drop the bunt. It depends on what you're doing in life. A lot of men, we lost Jimmy. A lot of men, when you go through divorce, you know, and Anthony, you've probably seen this as well with those you work with, that as men go through and the relationship status changes, they feel that their approach to being a dad has to change. And I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not sure if as a dad, welcome back, Jimmy. I'm not sure if as a dad, if I'm the dad I am because of my relationship status. I don't think so. And I will never know unless that ever changes, which I hope it doesn't. But in that, Jimmy, being the best dad you could be, regardless of marriage, of anything like that, how do you not allow just the human nature of wanting to compensate for the pain you feel that might have been inflicted, or the gap that you're seeing? You know, you're seeing the pain. You're like, I don't want to go to that house for Christmas, or I don't want to have to split. I don't like this. Why can't we just, that pain that shows up there, you're like, oh, I just want to feel it. But you can't sacrifice who you are as a dad and what you're trying to do there. So how do you meet them on that level without changing all of who you are and where you were trying to go in the first place?
Yeah,
it sounds difficult, man. Like, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing, like, damn, that's a tall order to put on a man to, like, and a woman too. You know, this again, we're always talking to the father angle, but we're speaking parents here. So their mother also had to figure out, okay, I don't have the husband in here anymore. My picture over here, like, what does that look like? And the girl's like, oh, I'm scared. Well, that used to be dad's job, and now that's our job. These are difficult conversations of who answers the door when things go bump in the night and you're not there. You know, we always say, men, we're the shield, we're the spear. Well, what happens when you're split and your kids are with somebody who's not a shield or spear? What's the thing? And that's more of a question for a mom. But dads also have to figure out, well, your girls are going through puberty. Your sons are looking for mom, like they're looking for the input of the coddling thing, where men are always, I'm stoic, I'm this.
Yeah,
you do have to change a little.
Absolutely. You know, I think one thing I would say is good parenting is good parenting, whether you're divorced or you're married.
Doesn't change.
Yeah, that doesn't
Absolutely
change. Right. The way I kind of think of it is, right, there's like I said, divorce is destructive, and there's ripples that flow from that, and parenting is the same no matter what. And it's just those waves of divorce intersect parenting and present some unique challenges or issues. So but you still need to be consistent. You still need to do all the things that you need to do. So part of that is, to your point about what if the girls don't want to go to their moms, or they don't like the situation as it is, or whatever, acknowledge those feelings. We talk about this all the time, right? It's just acknowledging, that it sucks. It sucks for me too. Like, it's like, especially in those early days. Or it's inconvenient that you have to go here. We're always back and forth. That has certainly come up a number of times. And so you just kind of acknowledge where they're at and what they're feeling, and let them know that it's okay to feel that way, and accept them for who they are. That's normal. It's a part of the process. And then and then you can deal with the other stuff. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to go over here because I don't like this or I don't like that. Well, I know you don't like it. Maybe you don't go, or maybe you stay here a little bit longer. There's been stuff like that where it's like, hey, I'll text their mom and say, can I drop the girls off a little bit later? One of them's having a hard time, just wants to, so there's those sorts of things. Over and above that, there's ways to still stay in contact. We both, the girls are with their mom this week. And so every night I send them a message, and props to Phil Foster, who mentioned this to me. But
let me throw that mug back up there.
Yeah. This is something I know he did with his daughter. It was so it's something I started to do. If I don't have them, I'll send them a message every night. If nothing else, all I'm saying is good night, and hope you guys had a great day. I love you guys. I'm here for you. But then if I know things are going on, I'll so how, I know you had this test coming up, or you had this going on at school, or whatever the case may be, and you can still interact and be there for them in that way, and at least reassure them. And so they know, even though they're with their mom, if they need me, they can call me, they can talk to me, I'm available. So should they need it, kind of thing.
Even though you're not there, Jimmy, you still have to be involved.
Yes.
And like you said before, you have to still be a good parent. Good parenting is good parenting no matter what the position. If you're divorced, if you're together. And, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of, especially fathers, you get divorced and you compensate, right? You're bribing your kids.
Yeah.
You're trying to win back their affection. And I just want to emphasize it. It doesn't matter if you're divorced or not. The principles of peaceful parenting, being connected, those stay the same, right? We have to learn to negotiate. Maybe we need to negotiate even more because now there's a separation, there's a distance. You have to tackle a lot more obstacles that me and Zac do, right? We're just like, oh yeah, you got to do your homework. How are we going to navigate that peacefully? You're like, I have to leave work, pick them up, drive here, go there. You're hit with a lot more challenges. So what is it, or how is your path to handling those challenges? Right? Would it be continued self-work, or do you just sit on the couch and eat Doritos and watch football?
Sit on the couch and eat Doritos. Like, it's called games.
I just killed your audio.
You did. You
hit that microphone. Punch it.
What?
This is violent podcasting.
Okay, hopefully this works. If not, I think I know what might be happening. So
he's just gonna quit.
Yeah. I can't handle these tough questions. So
good excuse.
Fair. Anyway,
do you do that with your girls when they have a difficult problem? You're like, I don't know how to talk.
Yeah, I just fake laryngitis. Hopefully that works.
Let's go, man.
You got to speak.
So hopefully you guys can still hear me.
Nope. Sounds like smash shit.
Well, it wouldn't. There we go. Let's try that. Yeah. Better?
No. Nope. It's cool, man. I've been running Zooms and interviews with you for 2 years. I've never heard that static.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Welcome to Oak and Rock, baby.
Yeah, it would be an Oak and Rock podcast if the audio wasn't crap, or it's some technical glitch, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's brutal.
We're gonna have you listen in until you can figure it out.
I'm gonna keep rolling. I'm gonna throw it to
being punished.
Clear your wires. I'll bring it back on in a second. So Anthony, here's one thing. I really like I had to like that audio is rough, and the show must go on. As we're doing this, I'm realizing, man, the more we talk about it, like the foundation is not based upon the weather. Your performance is not based upon whether it's received happily or not happily. You're doing the right thing. Truth doesn't have a filter. Jimmy, I'm about to throw you back in, so hopefully you got it going. Truth doesn't have a filter, though. It is what it is, and it doesn't change, and you don't change it for anything. And like I said, the conversation of, well, I've got to be a different dad. And I say different in the sense of like you're trying to overcompensate or do things differently in that sense because your relationship status changed. That's the same thing as saying, well, now that I'm married, I can take my foot off the gas.
Yep.
Now that I went from dating or engaged to married, I can be fat now. There's no difference to me in how men operate with that, allowing that to dictate their performance. And one of the things I'm hoping Jimmy can answer with his new crystal clear audio.
Hopefully.
Nope.
Try this. That work? Any better? No.
Nah, man, you're lost. No, but I agree, Zach. I don't think you can make excuses, no matter what your position is, no matter what storm you're facing or what obstacle. And you can't blame it on a crazy ex. You can't blame it on the court system. There's things that might not go your way, but your mission still has to stay the same. Or you can't veer off track too far. You have to be dedicated and committed to being a good dad. And a lot of fathers will use that as an excuse. They'll use it as an excuse to be more controlling and more strict, because now they have some sort of shame built up, and they're thinking, of course my kid's going to be upset. Of course they're going to have a hard time handling this. The studies show every kid does. And what they'll do is, what I was saying to Jimmy before, is they'll either bribe them, right? They'll buy their love, or they just batten down the hatches, and they think that because of what they've done, right, that their actions of getting divorced is going to make their kids behave in a less appropriate way, in a dangerous, or in a way that they don't care about themselves. So they'll overprotect. And
you're saying that they go from either buying the love and everything's no rules here, or the alternative is the other side of the spectrum.
Very strict.
Everything's locked down. There's no fun.
Yeah. Be even.
Hey, there you go.
Better.
Welcome back. Yeah. So something I wanted to talk to you about. Actually, Anthony asked you a great question. I'll let you riff on that, and then I'll follow it up with my question.
Yeah. So what do I do? Yeah. How do I deal with? A lot of it's working on myself, like you. I think you were saying. I mean, the reality is much of the stress in parenting comes from stress of our own making as parents. And so once I realized that certainly helps. That allows you to recalibrate, right? It's like, oh, well, wait a minute. And I know, Anthony, you and I had a discussion about this. It's so much easier to just yell at your kids than it is yourself. So let's blame them for all the problems, or you didn't, get up when you're supposed to, or you didn't listen, you're not moving fast enough. Well, no, I woke up late. So now we're late getting up and getting ready for school, and that's my fault. So, a lot of those failures are of my own making, or at least there's some control I have over that. So what can I do to be better? Maybe it's planning ahead. Maybe it's thinking ahead, having stuff ready the night before, so it's that much easier in the morning. But then there's other things too. How can I be a better dad? So reading parenting books, talking to other fathers, working out and exercise, diet, all those sorts of things. There's all these things that I can do to work on myself that ultimately helps me be a better dad. So you want to be a better father, work on yourself, be a better man, kind of thing. So
yeah. And what a great example to sorry, Zach. I know you have something you're waiting to let loose.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm gonna let you fester for a moment. No, but Jimmy, what a great example to show your kids that when there's something difficult, like a divorce, that you have to go through as a dad, to lean into yourself, to start taking care of yourself. And even though it's difficult and it's painful and you're not sure if you're going to make it through, you keep moving forward and do the next best thing or the next right thing. You don't give up. Right? When things get tough, you don't get to make an excuse. You don't get to fold. That's when we need to be pushing forward. And by you doing what you've done, that's what you show your girls. That's exactly what you show them. Hard times, difficulty, we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep a good mindset, and we're not going to let this defeat us. We're not going to let it overcome us with negative emotion, with shame and guilt. If those emotions are there, we deal with them. We get support from dad. Because dad's fucking grounded, and dad's going to help us. He's going to carry us through the tough times.
And when I make a mistake, and just to add on that, just to add on that, when I do if I do make a big mistake, like maybe I snap at them when I really shouldn't have, or I expect there's something I expect them to do that I didn't do to them. then I'll apologize and say, hey guys, you know, I'm human. I just got caught up in this. I made a mistake, and here's what we'll do going forward. But you know, that also shows them too, right? That, you know, hey, I'm just like them. I'm human, and we all make mistakes. So
He's gonna pop.
yeah.
This better be good, bro.
No, I'm actually going to change it. you guys inspired me to something else. I'm actually going to be pretty direct. So, as you're working to improve yourself as a man, and you're leveling things up, I mean, we're talking men of excellence, right? That's what we do. We see it a lot within the fraternity. And then the kid comes home and, well, I don't have to do that at mom's.
Ooh.
At mom's house, we don't have to sit and eat this. I can play on my phone if I want to. How do you respond to that? Because that's a big default. They can drop at almost anything. I don't want to go to bed at this time. I don't do that at mom's. At mom's house, I get to do X, Y, Z. And you're trying to be a better man. And so then where do you allow that? Because in a normal position, we know how to respond. You'd have a husband and wife united front. Here, it's not a united. And it's not that taking shots at each other. One runs one way. One runs one differently. And as before we started recording, I said to Anthony, kids in shared custody are running two offensive playbooks. They're running the Patriots and the Jets, and it keeps changing. And those are two very different teams. So how do you handle that when they say that to you?
You know, in all honesty, I can say that I haven't come across that yet. So should it actually happen though, I think, you know, then there is a conversation that you're right, that does need to happen. It's like, hey, you know, there's this going on. The girl said this. And, you know, the challenge though, right, is in a committed relationship, there's at least a little bit more incentive to work together and come to a mutual agreement quicker. In divorce, you know, there is some baggage there that doesn't necessarily, it's not impossible, but it doesn't help either, right? Because it's easier to dig heels in because, you know, she's dealing with the guy she divorced, not the guy I am today, and vice versa, and whatever baggage in the relationship. Well, I'm, you know, gonna fight for this because when we were married, this happened, and I didn't like that, or vice, and that's for both of us, not just me. But it doesn't mean we can't come to some unified agreement on what's best, the best way to approach the raising the girls and what's best for them. And so there would have to be that conversation in the moment, though. You know, if either one of the girls said that, I'd say, you know, I understand that, but maybe there's a fallback to a negotiation there. What's really the goal? What's really the thing I'm trying to do? Now, if it's bedtime and it's already, you know, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they have to be up for school the next day, okay, maybe there's not a lot of negotiation that's going to happen. But how can I find ways? I think I would like to believe I would default to how can I give them choice in a situation where they have none. Now this is different between households, but I'm willing to find a way to say yes to them, provided, you know, it's a mutual thing that we can agree on, given whatever situation's going on. So it'd certainly be challenging to deal with that, but you know, hopefully I'd tackle it the way I would anything else.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of all the scenarios. Yeah, I'm going. I'm trying to think of all the scenarios where they're like, you tell your kid, you know, I don't think it's time for a cell phone, and they go to the mom's house to get a cell phone. I don't think it's time for you to sleep or start dating. All right, now you're going on dates at mom's house, to where all the things that they don't want or they can't get from you, they can get from the other one. And there are a lot of men. I mean, we've had the discussions where they're in that situation, like, well, what do I do? And constantly, it's you do your best. Yeah. And there are men here who are going to be listening to this or watching this, and they're going to be like, I do my best, and my efforts. Let's do it again. I do my best. Anthony, we can riff with this one.
Coming on again.
They're doing their best. We've had these talks. And so still, I feel for you, brother. I feel for you that are going through that. I feel that you're in that situation. I understand how frustrating it is because you're trying to do the right thing. And maybe you can see some things, but, you know, your ex, the child's mother, maybe she's still caught up in that race. Welcome back, brother. You know, and so for the kids being raised by a parent still caught up in the loop, and then the other parent has unplugged, they've woken up, they're looking to be a better individual, free from the system. You know, it's a tough spot, but all you can do is be consistent and be there. Always present, always there. Someday it's my hope that every one of those kids is going to wake up and be like, all right, my dad's legit. He never changed his tune. He didn't go out of his way to make me happy. He didn't go out of his way to make me sad. He stayed true to the chorus of just what was right. And, you know, obviously a father will go out of his way to meet his child. Like, yeah, we can go play outside. What I'm saying is that over-parenting. You can't over-parent because your kid's going to see you're not doing this because you love me. You're doing this to show the whole world how great you fucking are. And that's not parenting. Parenting isn't for the world. Parenting is for the child. The discussions we have here about fatherhood, it's not for us to tell each other how great we are as bros, like with kids. You're the man, bro. You got kids. I'm the man. I don't hit my kids. We're the men. No, man.
We say that sometimes.
I want to give my kids a better life. I want to give them the best life. And the way I do that is to roll with motherfuckers like you. Other men who are trying it in different things. And Jimmy, I've never shared it, but you might have an insight on raising your daughters that helps me with my little one. You know, so it's not about your relationship status. It's you spoke to your daughters. I don't give a fuck if there's a wife in this picture or not. How, as a father, are you speaking to this daughter? That's what I need. That's what I can take. That's what I can apply. And I wish if other men in this situation gave themselves that same grace to be like, you're still a dad. I can still learn from you. You're not broken because your relationship didn't work. You know, and I was sharing with you guys, I'm on an argument thread. I don't even know why I do this, but I responded to somebody who was arguing about family law. And my point was, even men who've been chewed up by the system should try to be the best dad they can be. Because what's happening to you, how unjust, how unfair it is, has nothing to do with how you speak to that child. Those are two separate things. And we can't let the one bleed into the other and dilute it. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I don't know if my audio is still...
a little better.
It's better than what it was.
So
good.
What I would say is it's certainly that's a challenging situation. Like even in my case, right? 50% of the time I have my girls for a week, and this week they're with their mom. Next week I'll have them. And you know, that's even challenging. And I know there's guys out there that only have their kids for a very small amount of time. Maybe it's a weekend, maybe it's or less. And you know, that sucks. The reality is, though, is you're still a dad. And do you want to be a garbage dad, or do you want to have the best relationship that you can with your kids, whatever that means? Now, it may take longer because you have less time with your kids. You know, you're absolutely right. The fact that the system is rigged against you has nothing to do with parenting other than it limits the amount of time that you have with your kids. That doesn't mean that doesn't give you an excuse to be a garbage father, right? Like, you still need to be there for them, let them know you're there for them, even though they don't see you. And sure, their mom can load their head with a bunch of BS, and you know, there's all kinds of stories where that happens. But you know, like, you don't have, all you can control is what you can really control, and that's yourself and your mindset and all those sorts of things. So you can still, like you were saying, be consistent and be the best dad that you can be. And they'll notice that. Again, it may take time, and it may not be something that they realize, but before you know it, there'll be a point where it's like, you know what, no matter what, dad was always there. Dad, you know, he tried or whatever. It's like they recognize effort. And I think, you know, too often we don't give kids enough credit for how smart or how perceptive they really are, right? So I think there is something to that, and it's certainly understandable to be frustrated by the fact that you're not with your kids as often as you want to be or you should be. I mean, nobody starts a family. I certainly didn't start a family thinking that I would only have them half the time. I mean, that's shitty and that sucks. So I couldn't imagine having them even less. So, but like I said, it doesn't mean that you can't be a good father, whatever that means, given the time that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a little bit of an opposing stance and not side so much with the dads. I think if you're a grown man and you decide to get divorced, you have to own it. You have to take responsibility for it. I'm not saying I don't sympathize. That's why we do what we do, to help men. But I think there's a big disconnect that we play this victim role, or men play this victim role, and they never once say, what's going on with my kids, right? What's happening with them? How do they feel about this? How is the divorce affecting them? They have to choose between two parents. Who do you want to go with? Who do you not want to go with? And not that they even have a choice, because the game's rigged, like we know. But we never think to ourselves, or at least I never hear this conversation come up enough, right? Is there's kids who they feel guilty when they're young, right? A toddler or a young child thinks it could be their fault that their parents are getting divorced because of them. Then if you're a teenager and you get divorced, teenagers get angry and they blame the parents. So there's a lot of pressure that is put on dads. But I think we have to first and foremost find out what the children need before we start pointing fingers everywhere and blaming why this is happening to us. That the system's unfair, the game's rigged. You have to connect with your kids. You have to be able to have conversations with them. You have to be able to explain things to them, and you have to build that connection and trust. Because if you don't have that, you're going to be toxic, right? If you're the other parent, if you're a dad and you have an opportunity to hear what we're saying and improve your relationship with a kid, then the other parent is going to have to compete with that, right? And it's not going to be like, oh, when we're at mom's house, we get to do whatever we want. It's going to be like, when we're at dad's house, we have fun. We're connected. He gives us attention. We love being there. We laugh. We enjoy ourselves. And we get our shit done. The mom, well, I'm not saying you, Jimmy, I'm just generalizing.
Yeah.
But the other parent is going to be like, oh, wow, where am I lacking? What do I need to improve? And then you can find some common ground on parenting, or it might cause more problems. Who knows, right?
But either way, right? Like we said this whole time, right? Good parenting is good parenting.
Yeah.
So, if kids will want to be in a place where they're respected, where they're accepted, and like we talk about, like you guys have talked about on all these podcasts and whatnot, it's like and your overall message, right? It's how can we work with our kids? How do we teach our kids, lead our kids, not try and control them or manipulate them or all those sorts of things? And they realize that they'll see that, they'll feel that. I've just
you got to build from within, man. It's like anything. It's like any challenge you're faced with. Your kid is not doing their homework. Your son hits your daughter or bites your daughter. You don't resort to inferior ways, right? And you don't have the mindset that, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? That's not your position. You're a father. You're supposed to be leading, whether it's in your home, even when they're away, right? You want your influence to impact them when they're at the mom's house, when they're in school, wherever they are. If you don't have that, then you're not doing it right? If your daughters aren't always thinking, and I don't mean this from like a pressure or shameful way, but they should be thinking, man, what did dad teach me? What would dad want me to do? Right? What has he spoken to us about over and over? He's gotten in the reps and he's made us understand that we need to treat other people good, right? That we don't want to hurt or harm people. And they learn that because you treat them good. You don't harm them, even when things are tough, right? You get your shit together and you say, all right, how can I approach this from a logical or rational way where I'm going to get what I need and my daughters can get what they need? And that's when you bring in the win-win negotiation, right? Because a lot of times it's win-lose. And the parent has to be right. The dad has to know what's best. And we don't care. This is what I was trying to say before, is we don't care what goes on with the kids. It doesn't matter if it's divorce or getting chores done. We have to involve them. We have to care what they think, and we have to guide them through the process. Otherwise, we're not parents. We're just being an emotional, immature bully. Yeah.
Well, it's right. Parenting isn't about getting over on your kids, right? It's not about winning whatever thing with your kids. It's not a you versus them. It's both of us together. And so, how can you find ways to teach them, to lead them. And like you said, even when they're not with me or with with either of us really as parents, like at school or when they're out on their own, right? That's the true test of what we have taught them as parents. So yeah, that's definitely like I said, good parenting is good parenting. It's just important to keep that in mind, regardless of the time you have and regardless of whatever circumstances you're fighting against, because at the end of the day, it's about forging a stronger relationship with your kids and what can you do to move that forward. And you may be moving a millimeter, but 0.001% forward motion is still forward motion. So
as you go through this, man, it is not lost on me the difficult nature of this discussion. Like, you're talking about your life right now. And whenever I share like sobriety or anything like that, and I'm like, yeah, like I list something I did that was totally stupid, and people are like, oh, well, it's so good that you did so much. It's like you feel good, but I have to like deal with like that was me. And like I'm still dealing with this was an issue I had, and I'm glad it helped you. But understand that was like a serious source of pain. And I'm sharing it because I have to own it. And you're sharing this now, and you've spoken to it many times. I would never blindly be like, hey, dude, come on and talk about this. Like, you've spoken about this quite a bit to where you're in a position that it seems like you're comfortable talking about these things. And you're like, you've come to terms with it, you've come to peace with it. And a lot of fathers haven't. And that strikes me as a little odd, because as men, we talk a lot about our stoic nature and being men and masculine. But it's a very, I don't know if it's an identity thing, if it's a feelings thing, or if it's just a total moment of loss to where these men, they can't talk about it. It becomes a taboo subject, similar to fatherhood itself. If you're married, you don't talk about being a dad, and now you're divorced, you definitely don't want to talk about being a dad, because now there's even more weight to it, because there's like we've discussed, the complexity that you have to go through is far greater than something that somebody's in a relationship has. It's like being a single mom versus a married mom. Jackie has me. If it was just her, it'd be so much harder. And that's just the nature of the beast. And so as a divorced man, you have to sort of come to terms with this as to who you are and what it is you're doing. And how did you find, so this is not a parenting question.
Yeah.
How did you, Jimmy, come to terms where you're like, this happened, I didn't want it to, but here I am, and now I can talk it and own it and then go forward?
Yeah, there was a lot of work that went into that, right? I mean, it's to be sure, you have to, I mean, there's the reality of it, but that it's happening, and so you kind of can't, once that train starts rolling, it's once it gets to a certain point, the train's left, and you just kind of have to deal with it. But
what's the time frame there, though? Like, how long are you watching that train go? Is that a week process? Is that a month? Does it take you a full year? For some, it's you've got to go through I call a long-term relationship a year or longer, because you've been through every holiday. So to me, that's a long-term thing. You've checked every box. How about divorce? Is that the same?
Similar. I mean, we were together in my particular case, we were married. Officially, we were married almost 14 years, or just over 14 years. By the time the divorce was finalized, we actually dated a number of years before that. So we have, basically 2 decades in of a relationship and history and all those sorts of things. So there was a time where, like, I would say it's at least a year. It may have been closer to a year and a half or 2, where it was just getting through. I was just doing everything. It took everything I could just to get through it. And then you come out the other side of that time period. It didn't take that, like, the divorce was finalized, and then there's just time, like you said, there's holidays, there's things, there's follow-on ripple effects that you think you've handled it, but then the next holiday shows up, or Christmas shows up, and you open the box of ornaments, and there's all these traditions and all these things that are surrounded with that holiday that we had built up over time. And so there is some of that. And I will say too, for me, there's a period, even though there's hundreds of thousands of divorces that happen every day, and I knew I wasn't the only person who's ever been divorced, there was a time where I felt isolated and alone, because most of my family, friends, they're all still married. So I'm the odd duck out, because normally I'd have my wife with me and the girls. Well, now it's just me or me and the girls kind of thing. And holidays schedule being what it is, there are times where I show up to something and it's just me. That feels weird. So there is a period of time where you kind of have to process through that. And, I wish I could say there's some magic dust that you could sprinkle on yourself and poof, everything's fine. But everyone's journey would be different, but you kind of just have to work through all that stuff till you get to a point where you go, okay, like I said, now I'm through it. What is it? Now I had to change my focus. Instead of getting through the sort of divorce and the aftermath of that, to what is life beyond divorce, after divorce, mean for me, and start putting that together and moving in that direction. So there is a period, transition. There was a transition period for me where I knew where I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, what I thought that looked like. But, I'm running on wobbly legs because this is all new, right? So
would you say that time period is like a mourning of the relationship?
Yes.
Like, is that kind of what that is? And so as you're saying this, I'm kind of getting that visual, and I'm wondering how many men don't properly grieve or mourn it, and therefore they don't actually heal from it. And that becomes one of the staples to the issues they have following it. It's not that they couldn't get over it. It's that they never got over it. They never dealt with it. They never came to terms like, yeah, that died. It didn't work out.
And I will say too, certainly, working with guys inside the fraternity. I also, but at the time I was going through the divorce, I was going to a therapist as well. And some of that was just some of that was to help me, but some of it also too was to protect me, because, I could have a conversation with my friends or family, but those are, and fortunately I've had a supportive family. I have a couple friends, a couple of guys that I'm, really close with here in town that we would talk. But the problem with that is they could be called in as a character witness should the divorce go to trial. So having a therapist where I could say whatever I want, that conversation's privileged. And so, there's some protection for me there, but then also too, right, there's some help I could get just dealing with the emotion. So, I used to think, even going, I was reluctant to do so at first, because, therapy is for crazy people kind of thing. But then you start going through it and you realize, oh shit, wow, this is helpful. It's a place where I can express what I'm feeling, what I'm dealing with. And then kind of try and trace back where some of these things have come up and, help me get squared away mentally and physically, and all those other things happened outside of that case. So, I'd certainly recommend that to people. Find a good therapist. They can certainly help. May take you a while to find one, but once you do, there's, some good things that can flow from that. And not just for me, but some suggestions for how I could help my daughters as well deal with their emotions and some of those things in divorce.
Yeah, just have the conversation. Be strong enough to admit that there's something you need to deal with, right? It's having, whether it's a weakness or, like Zac was saying, if you need to grieve in a healthy way, otherwise that shit eats away at you, right? It's always there. It won't go away. And it does become your identity. You become that person who's broken, that person who can't get past it. So going back to parenting, it's what we need to teach our kids to grieve in a healthy way. When they're faced with a big emotion or a sadness or something happened, let them feel it, let them live it, let them experience it, and not be afraid of that, right? You said before, Jimmy, that there's places you have to go by yourself, and it's weird. It's strange. You've never had to do that. You're not with the family. That's okay, right? It's part of what happened. So you have to understand that that's the position you're in. These are things that you're going to have to face. And you don't say, well, I'm not going to do it, or I can't do it, right? You start having the conversations with people. You talk about it. You learn from other men who've went through it and experienced it. Just like any problem with parenting, If you stay closed and you're afraid of what might happen, you're never going to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know that you definitely need to be, I'll call it, an intellectually curious about yourself, right? You got to want to work on yourself. You got to be willing to face that stuff. And you know, it sucks. It sucks to look in the mirror and realize, yeah, I'm responsible for my half of the failure of our marriage, right? I mean, you know, there's mistakes that I made, there's things that I should have done and could have done, and all those sorts of things. And it sucks to admit that stuff. It sucks to face those. Oh, geez, I could have done better here, or man, I could have handled this differently. And you know, it's never fun to do go through some of that shit. But at the same time, right? It's work that I needed to do, and you know, unfortunately, it took a divorce to really be a huge catalyst to make that happen. But you know, I'm a much better man, and ultimately a much better father for it, because I've actually done the work. And
you know, might not have been the man that you are today if you didn't have to go through that struggle.
Absolutely. And we talk about it a lot, right? Real recognizes real. And so, you know, there's, you know, that, to your point earlier, your actual question, Zach, I think now I'm at a point too where I know we're guys, I've been through that sort of fire, and I've been through, come out the other side. So I know what my experiences was like. I know it's possible. I know who I am. I know where I came from too. So, you know, now I'm in a better place where I can step out and reach out to others and help others, and at least talk about this stuff in a way where it's more inspiring instead of demoralizing, like a demoralizing reminder of, oh, I failed at this marriage and this relationship kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, nobody comes out of this scratch free. Nobody's coming out of this game, you know, without a lump on them. And one of the things that I like to continue to remind men is that you're more than your relationship status. I've said it a few times in this podcast. Like, all right, that changed, but outside of grieving that relationship and having to sort of dial your life in, which sucks. That's fucking horrible. Like, I'm not putting that or lessening that at all. But you still got to sack up and go on. You still have work to do. And, you know, and no matter what happens, I mean, dude, you could literally throw me into a car accident, flip me out of a fucking boat, fucking do whatever, you know, dump a million things of work on me, and then say, hey, you got to go do your fucking job. Okay, I got to go do my job, and I will do my job, and I will do my job literally until I can't move. And as a dad, the relationship might not have worked, but you still have a job to do, you know. And so for these men, I think you being on here and having this discussion, I say think because I know the three of us, when we listen to things, we apply them. We don't just learn to learn, we apply the knowledge. Many watching this, it's my hope that they see you and they're like, oh shit, this guy survived the system. This guy made it out. This guy is choosing to be a good dad. This guy has a healthy relationship with his kids. And if they're fresh in their divorce, they might be like, my kids are going to hate me. Like they build this whole scenario that hasn't happened, but they think it's going to, and now they're suffering the pain of a child hating them or a situation to where they're just feeling like trash. And it's like, brother, you don't have to be like the masses. You can be exceptional still. You can be an exceptional man, an exceptional father. I don't walk up to dudes who are engaging their kids and be like, hey man, you married? It's like, no, hey man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Your kids are totally jiving. Like I dig the relationship you guys have there. My kids very similar. They're gonna go play. So what's up? Like, what's your deal? What do you do? Like, and then start the conversation. At no point am I like, you don't have a wife? We can't be buddies. I don't give a fuck. It's not about that. It's about the man. And I wish more men would give themselves that sense of ownership, because you live it, you embody it. You literally embody it through like your physique, like literally, but also figuratively. You know, you go out there and you give a great presence as a man, and at the end of the day, it has literally nothing to do with all this weight that we're putting on to like, oh, well, I'm a divorced. Stop identifying as that. You're a man. You're a father. You don't have to tell me what kind of relationship you used to have. I don't care. I used to have a girlfriend. I got a wife. I'm not an ex-girlfriend guy. I have a wife. Like nobody cares about what I used to do. It's like, what are you doing now? Like, cool. I raised my kids to do my thing. I'm a single man. Okay. Neat. What value do you bring to my life? Neat. What information are you going to do to help improve me? If it's nothing, or we're mutuals. If it's something like, all right, maybe there's something to grow here. But at no point should we sit there and say, all right, well, my relationship didn't work and therefore I failed as a man.
Yeah.
Like, no, your failure as a man came when you decided to stop acting like a man.
So
Absolutely.
how do you get those thoughts out of your mind? Right? How do you not tell yourself that you aren't a piece of shit, that you aren't a bad dad? And I'll use an example, like say you don't have your girls and then the next week they're coming. There's a lot of men who will say, "Oh my God, my kids are coming. This is going to be shitty. They hate me. You know, they're not going to have a good time here. It's going to be horrible." And they build up this toxic environment before it even happens. So how do you prepare yourself to always be and live in that moment and never take for granted the time that you have when your kids do come to see you, when you have that custody?
That's a fantastic question. And I think the best way I can answer that is that for me, I guess I wanted kids. Like I wanted kids. I wanted a family. And regardless of the state of my marriage, you know, my girls are my girls. It's like, you know, my kids are my kids. And I really, you know, it's to me, it was exciting to be with them. It's like, yeah, it would suck when they're not here. And I would have to, and part of that was realizing, you know, how many hobbies or how many things I sort of let go by the wayside because of kids and marriage and all that sort of stuff, which guys unfortunately tend to do. But with the girls coming, it's like, oh, this is, you know, I can't wait. It'll be awesome to reconnect with them, spend time with them. You know, I stayed in the family home. Their mother is the one that moved out. So really this is home. And so it's weird when they're not here, but it's home. It's definitely home when they are here. And so for me, it was a lot of, I think it was just a lot of that. I was excited to see them. I wanted to see them. Sure, I will admit, there was a time where I did feel like a failure because of, I couldn't, you know, the marriage didn't work out. And some of that was feeling like I failed them. Right, because kids need both parents, and that's the reality, regardless of what society may tell us. Right, kids, boys and girls need their moms and their dads, and so there's some of that. It's like, geez Louise, you know, I feel guilty, I feel shame, I feel embarrassed, I feel humiliated, and all those things that come with that. But the reality is, it's, you know, it's the relationship with my girls, is to see them smile. You know, it reminds me, there's a guy I know whose kids were like high school or maybe in college, and he had two daughters, twins actually, and he said, you know, the one thing about having, this was shortly after my oldest was born, he's like, the one thing that never gets old is hearing my daughters say, "Daddy, I love you." And, you know, there's something about, not even "Daddy, I love you," it's just seeing their smiling faces and having them come run up to me and hug me and all those sorts of things. It's all those little things that we all love about being fathers that still apply and still matter. And so, you know, it's easy to get bogged down in those negative emotions, but it's emotions. It's a part of life. There's a point where you kind of have to accept it and move on. And it takes work to do that, to be sure. But, you know, it's
the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers. It's I'm out. We'll never know.
We'll
never know what happened to the Jimmy.
Can be done, is what I'm saying. If I can do it. I mean, the cool thing is if I can do it, and
his audio's back.
Yeah.
Crushing it, brother. This has been the most technically difficult. I thought Anthony and I were bad. You made us look like champions today. And I want to appreciate your presence on here. You said somebody had to class this place up. I think somebody had to make us look good. And I appreciate you being that guy.
I will say divorce is expensive, right? It costs a lot of money to get divorced.
Yes.
We will be setting up a GoFundMe after this to get Jimmy a new microphone.
Get Jimmy a
headset.
I don't know what the problem is. Like, how many Zooms have I been on? It's been fine.
0.
I couldn't hear
that it went wrong.
Hey, Jimmy, I want to thank you for coming on again. And for anybody listening, these conversations, he flows very well. That doesn't make it more comfortable. It is diving through your past, is digging up things that you've had to face at the time were very difficult. Right now, time heals wounds. You've had time to process, time to deal, time to have others kind of weigh in and give some input to help you kind of come to peace. And like we said, grieve. And so you've done that. So that doesn't mean it's easy to do that right now. What you're doing right now is greatly appreciated because it's a heavy lift, and the fact that you're doing it, coming on here, you're doing it on Barbarian Rhetoric, you're doing it on inside the fraternity, you're doing it on Twitter, and everywhere I fucking see you, you're either like flexing the arms or you're helping some dads out. So you're a great man to have in the arsenal because of the many skill sets you bring to you're like a Swiss Army knife, dude. And so but honestly, I truly, and Josh Lysa's going to get mad, but I truly appreciate what it is that you are doing, man, and come on here to have this difficult conversation. It means a lot because Anthony and I could not speak to it the way you can. We've not been through that ringer. And so I just want to thank you very much.
I appreciate
it's really cool, man. Really, really, really cool.
Yeah. Really. All the adverbs.
Appreciate the kind words. And certainly, you should have me on again when my audio is working.
Yeah, bro, we're gonna run an op test before you come on next time.
Roger. You're actually good right now.
North Carolina, brother. We'll take a trip down to Anthony, hit him up in South Carolina, go in the office. It's really comfy chairs behind him. We'll get it rolling live, man. That'd be fucking killer.
Hell yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Jimmy, before we wrap this one up, I've got a link to your Twitter below. Yep. Anywhere else people should find you or reach out to you if they want to touch base?
You mentioned it. So if I'm not doing this, I'm helping Nate and CJ out with barbarianrhetoric.com. We do a weekly podcast where we talk about fatherhood and a lot of other things. I know Anthony's been on there. Zach, I don't know if Zach.
He doesn't invite me. I keep telling Nathan to invite me and he won't.
Yeah. Well, look for something because we're putting some stuff together. So
all right, I'll be ready.
You tell him I'm not coming on again until he gets Zach on.
Yes.
Roger that. We'll make that happen. So, but you can find me there. I've written some posts there, like you mentioned, the baseball post and others.
I love that one so much.
We do the podcast where we talk about this stuff and help men be better. So appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak to this. So it's never any fun, but if anyone has any questions, by all means, hit me up on Twitter. It's probably the best place to find me, and I'll do what I can to help you out.
Cool. Anthony, what you got?
Yo. Nothing, man. Jim, I always enjoy talking to you, brother. It's truly an honor. And I think these are conversations that need to happen, right? This is what dads, fathers, men need to talk about, how we get stronger, how we get better, and how we improve ourselves. That's why we do these things.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to have the hard conversation, right?
Especially live. In front of who knows who's watching, how many people are going to see this, doesn't matter.
Regardless,
we own our words. And that's the thing. As men, we've got to own who we are. Owning who you are, regardless of relationship status. If you tuned in and learned nothing less, let it be that. This has been another episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. If you enjoyed the message, spread the good word. Like, subscribe, share. We're not running ads. We're just putting the content out where it goes. That's up to you. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to keep showing up. Stay well.